"You can't expect me to block my ex. We're still friends," she said, so I replied, "Then be friends." That night, I took down every photo of us, except of the promotion abroad, and sent her a picture of my boarding pass when she texted, "Why are you ignoring me?" Only in my case, it wasn't a romantic ex. It was my older brother Jason, the golden child of my family, who somehow could do no wrong in the eyes of Mom and Dad, and yet had made my life miserable in ways they refused to notice. I grew up walking on eggshells, learning early that to survive in that house, I had to be perfect. Perfect grades, perfect behavior, perfect at keeping peace, perfect at cleaning up messes that weren't mine. Jason, on the other hand, could charm anyone, teachers, neighbors, even strangers he just met at the grocery store, and escape consequences for anything. And our parents, bless them, had their favorites without realizing the damage it caused. I learned quickly that I existed mostly as a buffer, the responsible one, the glue. Jason existed as the fun one, the attention grabber, the one everyone laughed with while I mopped up behind scenes. So when Mom texted me that morning, asking me to mediate another argument between Jason and Dad, I stared at my phone for a long time, feeling a wave of exhaustion and frustration wash over me. I wanted to scream that I was done. I wanted to say, "I'm not your mediator. I'm not your savior. I'm not your emotional sponge anymore." But the word stayed in my throat. I told her I'd think about it, which was my polite way of saying I was already planning my escape. The week before, Jason had borrowed money from Mom to cover an emergency that turned out to be tickets to a concert he didn't even go to, and then claimed I was supposed to help him reconcile with Dad after he got yelled at for it. I'd been drawn into these situations for years, silently paying for his mistakes or cleaning up his chaos, and every time I told myself it was because I loved my family. But that love came with a cost I hadn't realized I was paying: my sanity. That morning, I called Jason, ready to explain that I wouldn't be mediating anymore, that I couldn't put myself in the middle of his messes. Instead, he laughed like it was some joke, leaning against the kitchen counter, probably with a drink in his hand and friends crowding his apartment. "You can't expect me to block Dad," he said, with that infuriating smirk that always made me want to shake him. "We're still family." I stared at the phone, stunned. I swallowed hard, keeping my voice steady. "Then be family. I'm done arguing." He snorted and hung up, and for a moment, I felt a rush of relief. I wasn't going to be sucked into their drama again. That night, I sat in my apartment, slowly going through boxes I hadn't touched in months. I picked up framed photos of family vacations, birthdays, and holidays, noticing for the first time how often Jason was in the spotlight, smiling, charming, while I was always in the background, holding the camera or fixing something he broke. I deleted every photo where his hand rested on my shoulder, every snapshot where we were smiling at a family gathering, every letter and card where my name appeared as the one cleaning up after his antics. Then I sent him a picture of my boarding pass across the app. No words, no explanation, just me leaving. The next day, he started texting, "Why are you ignoring me? We need to talk." Family first, come on. I ignored all of them. For the first time in years, I chose myself over the obligations I hadn't signed up for. Flashback to childhood. Mom would send me to apologize to Jason's teachers when he got attention for pranks he thought were harmless. Dad would lecture me on patience while Jason got away with breaking curfews and returning home late, smelling faintly of alcohol, waving his charm like a shield. And each time, I swallowed my frustration, told myself it was fine, because family comes first. But I began to realize that family in that household meant someone else's convenience, someone else's happiness, while I existed to prop it all up, and I had been doing it for years. I was tired, exhausted. My chest ached with the weight of expectations I hadn't consented to carry. On the plane to Chicago, I stared out the window, watching the city below shrink into a grid of lights and traffic, and felt a sense of freedom I hadn't realized I craved so desperately. My new job awaited me. A senior position at a tech firm, projects I had dreamed about, opportunities one had turned down before, because Jason's mess needed cleaning up. The relief was real and tangible, washing over me in waves. I didn't answer the texts. I didn't explain. I let them sit there unanswered, as I imagined the chaos unfolding back home. Jason probably stormed around the apartment yelling at Mom. Mom, in turn, probably called Dad, complaining about me abandoning them. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty. Life in Chicago was everything I hoped it would be. My apartment was small but cozy, with a view of Lake Michigan. Each morning, I made coffee and watched the water, feeling a calm I hadn't known in years. Work was absorbing, challenging, and I threw myself into projects that finally made me feel alive again. I made friends at the office who didn't demand I clean up after them, who didn't guilt me into being someone I wasn't. Slowly, I started dating casually, someone who appreciated stability, someone who didn't pull me into family drama every weekend. And in those quiet evenings on my balcony, I reflected on everything. Every birthday Jason had forgotten, every apology I had written for his mistakes, every crisis I had absorbed silently. It had all been a training ground for this, a life where I could finally prioritize myself without guilt. Meanwhile, messages from back home continued. Mom texted endlessly about Jason, guilt-laden, trying to pull me back. He's struggling. He needs you. Jason sent frantic bursts. I didn't mean it. Come back. You're the only one who understands. I read each one once, then deleted it. I realized that my absence wasn't cruelty. It was self-preservation. And through all of it, a sense of clarity began to grow. I had spent decades cleaning up after people who refused to own their mistakes. Now I didn't have to. Months passed. Jason's charm only took him so far. Friends began sharing news that he had missed rent payments, lost his job, and burned bridges with people who had helped him. Mom finally started seeing what I had been telling her all along. Dad, who always preferred Jason's antics when it suited him, began to realize that being a good boy didn't mean being the family's punching bag. And yet, I never reached out. I didn't gloat, didn't rub it in. I observed quietly, focused on my own growth, my own life. Then came the day Jason sent a long, desperate text. You left me, alone. I screwed up. I need you. I read it once, exhaled, and deleted it. Nothing in me felt pity or obligation. The years of manipulation and emotional labor had ended. My parents tried to intervene, begging me to come home, crying, guilting me into returning, but I stayed firm. It wasn't their approval I needed. It was my own peace. Life in Chicago flourished. My apartment became a sanctuary. Work was stimulating, filled with colleagues who respected me and treated me as an equal. I started building a social life independent of my family, exploring the city, trying new restaurants, learning to enjoy weekends without the constant emotional blackmail I had grown up with. Slowly, I felt my lungs expand, my shoulders relax, and a smile returned to my face that hadn't been there in years. I was finally breathing, really breathing. Flashback to one particularly brutal Christmas. Jason had argued with Mom over a trivial gift, stormed out, and left me to explain to her why he didn't mean to upset anyone and how I should smooth things over. That night, I stayed up writing apologies I didn't mean, trying to repair a rift I didn't cause. And yet, years later, that same Jason was begging me to fix everything again. The irony wasn't lost on me. The moment I chose myself was the moment I stopped being their emotional servant. By the end of the first year in Chicago, Jason's downfall became more public. Mutual friends sent screenshots of social media rants, job losses, financial woes, and fights with Mom. He had no one to bail him out this time. Karma, slow but inexorable, had caught up. Mom reached out one last time, pleading for reconciliation, sharing his struggles. I didn't respond. I blocked numbers, emails, and social media accounts. I wasn't heartless. I just couldn't be pulled back into a cycle that was designed to break me. My life had grown rich in ways I hadn't expected. Emotionally, professionally, personally. I was thriving. My family's chaos was no longer my burden. By the second year, I had started a serious relationship with someone wonderful, someone who respected boundaries and understood the value of mental peace. My apartment was filled with laughter and warmth, not tension and guilt. Chicago had given me life. I realized I had been deprived not of family, but of autonomy. Jason, Mom, and Dad had spent decades molding me into a caretaker, and for the first time, I was free. I could finally exist for myself. And when I occasionally glimpsed messages about Jason's continued struggles, failed jobs, evictions, arguments, financial collapse, I felt a calm sense of justice. Not cruelty, not joy at another's suffering, just clarity that my decision to leave had been right. Boundaries had saved me. Walking away had saved me. I think back to the first night I sent that boarding pass. I remember the feeling of resolve, the sense that for the first time I was placing myself first, unapologetically. Every sacrifice I had made over the years, every compromise, every apology I had meant, it had led me to this, a life where I could thrive without guilt, without manipulation, without being tethered to chaos. I finally understood that you can't save people who refuse to save themselves. You can't be responsible for someone else's failures, even if they're your family. And most importantly, that choosing yourself isn't betrayal, it's survival. I built a life for me now, rich, full, calm, and thriving. And when I think back to the family I left behind, I do so without regret. I did what I needed to do. I lived. And in doing so, I found the peace I've been denied for far too long. Love is quiet. It is respect. And sometimes the kindest, most loving thing you can do for yourself and the person who no longer belongs in your life is to let go fully and never look back. And I hadn't, not once.